Welcome back to Godless and Grounded. For thousands of years, humans have looked up at the sky, down at the ground, and deep within themselves, trying to make sense of everything around them. Why are we here? What causes disease? Why do the stars shine? Why do crops fail? And in the early stages of civilization, before we had tools of observation or methods of experimentation, religion filled in the gaps. It gave people answers. Not necessarily the right ones, but answers nonetheless. It explained the thunder with gods, the seasons with divine cycles, and human suffering as punishment or divine will. But here's the thing. As comforting as those answers might have seemed at the time, they were not based on evidence. They were stories, myths, passed down over generations. They didn't help us cure diseases. They didn't help us build airplanes, harness electricity, or communicate across the globe. That's what science did, and continues to do. Today, we live in a world that is built, almost entirely, on the foundations of science. The device you're using to watch this video, the screen, the software, the network, is a product of science, not prayer, not divine intervention, not scripture, but years of testing, failure, experimentation, and discovery. The reality is, if we removed science from our world, modern civilization would collapse in days. But if we removed religion, life would go on. Hospitals would still treat patients. Planes would still fly. The internet would still work. What does that tell us? It tells us that science is not just a tool. It's essential for human progress. And unlike religion, science doesn't demand belief without question. In fact, science invites questions. It encourages doubt. It thrives on being challenged. A scientific theory stands only if it survives constant scrutiny. That's how knowledge grows. Religion, on the other hand, tends to shut down questioning. You're told to believe, to have faith, to accept without evidence. And if you don't, you're often made to feel like a sinner, a rebel, or a threat. But humanity doesn't need blind faith. We need understanding. We need curiosity. We need tools to solve real problems. And that's what science gives us. Let's take medicine as an example. For centuries, religious explanations for illness dominated thinking. People believed diseases were caused by sin, demons, or divine punishment. Some believed praying, fasting, or giving offerings would heal the sick. But people kept dying. Then came science, slowly, methodically, and often against religious resistance. Scientists discovered bacteria, viruses, and the immune system. They developed vaccines, antibiotics, surgical procedures, and hygiene practices. And millions of lives were saved. No prayer ever eradicated smallpox. No holy book ever explained how the immune system works. That was science. And what about natural disasters? In ancient times, when a volcano erupted or an earthquake hit, people believed the gods were angry. They made sacrifices, built temples, or blamed it on sinners. But today, we understand tectonic plates, volcanic pressure, climate patterns. We use sensors, satellites, and warning systems to save lives. We don't need myths anymore. We need data. Religion often asks us to stop at "God did it." Science asks, how? Why? Can we test that? Religion tells us to have faith. Science tells us to ask questions. Another clear example is space exploration. The ancient religious view of the universe placed Earth at the center, surrounded by celestial spheres. But science showed us that Earth is just one planet orbiting a star, in a galaxy of billions of stars, in a universe of billions of galaxies. Religion made humans the center of everything. Science humbled us, and in doing so, expanded our imagination. We landed on the moon not because of divine will, but because of physics, engineering, and mathematics. That achievement wasn't based on faith. It was built on human knowledge, teamwork, and experimentation. Let's also talk about communication. There was a time when religious institutions controlled information, deciding what people could read, think, or say. Books were burned. Scientists were punished. Free thought was dangerous. But science pushed back. The invention of the printing press, the internet, and smartphones, all driven by scientific knowledge, broke down those barriers. Now people can share ideas freely, learn independently, and challenge outdated beliefs. That's progress, and progress is what humanity needs. Think about agriculture. Religious cultures often relied on rituals, sacrifices, or prayers to ensure good harvests. But famine still happened. Crops still failed. Science, however, introduced crop rotation, irrigation, fertilizers, and genetically modified seeds. Today, we produce more food than ever before, not because of miracles, but because of knowledge. Science made it possible to feed billions. And science doesn't stop at just practical needs. It helps us understand ourselves. Psychology, neuroscience, and evolutionary biology help us make sense of human behavior, emotions, and mental health. Instead of blaming everything on evil spirits or original sin, we now recognize trauma, brain chemistry, and genetic predispositions. That understanding leads to better treatment, more compassion, and less stigma. Religion often divides people into believers and non-believers, the saved and the damned. But science doesn't care where you were born or what God you pray to. Gravity pulls on everyone the same way. Chemistry reacts the same for everyone. The laws of physics are universal. Science unites us through a shared reality. Of course, science isn't perfect. Mistakes happen. But here's the difference. Science corrects itself. If an experiment fails, it's not hidden, it's studied. If a theory is wrong, it's revised. Religion rarely does that. Many religious beliefs remain frozen, resistant to change, even when evidence contradicts them. That rigidity holds humanity back. Let's not forget how science has changed morality too. For a long time, religious texts were used to justify slavery, gender inequality, and discrimination. But scientific understanding of human biology, genetics, and psychology helped us realize that all humans are fundamentally the same. That race is a social construct, that gender roles are not fixed. And slowly, that knowledge has helped shape a more equal, just society, despite religious resistance. Science isn't just about lab coats and equations. It's about a mindset, one that values evidence, skepticism, and discovery. A mindset that says, we don't know everything yet, but we're trying. That honesty is powerful. Religion often pretends to have all the answers, but can't prove them. Science admits its limitations and still moves forward. Even the devices we use every day are reminders of the power of science. GPS relies on Einstein's theory of relativity. Your phone's touchscreen involves materials science. Your internet connection is possible because of fiber optics, electromagnetism, and quantum physics. None of that came from scripture. All of it came from science. And when we talk about saving our planet from climate change, pollution, and resource depletion, religion offers little more than hope or prayer. Science offers data, solutions, and innovation. Renewable energy, electric cars, carbon capture, these aren't miracles. They're the result of research and human effort. Now imagine a world where all that energy, funding, and attention that currently goes into religious institutions, the massive buildings, the endless rituals, the tax exemptions, was redirected towards scientific education, research, and problem solving. Imagine how much faster we could cure diseases, protect the environment, or explore the universe. Religion may have given early humans comfort, but we've outgrown it. Just as we outgrew believing that the sun moves around the earth or that lightning is thrown by gods. Comfort doesn't mean truth. Familiarity doesn't mean usefulness. In the end, humanity doesn't need more belief. We need more understanding. We need to keep learning, keep questioning, and keep moving forward. That's what science does. It builds. It improves. It liberates. Religion looks backward. Science looks forward. And if we want to survive as a species, not just survive but thrive, we need forward thinking. We need critical minds. We need real solutions, not holy stories, because the future doesn't belong to those who cling to the past. It belongs to those who dare to ask, explore, test, and discover. That's why humanity needs science, not religion.